All right, we are recording, and pre-record. We've now worked out that we're going to be your trusted pet sitter for your amazing little
Yeah.
dog. There. What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Ash. We call him Ash the Vexel dog. But as I said, you want a dog sitting, but you might have to put your name on the list because
Yeah,
a lot of people want the dog sit.
a
So,
lot of people
but yeah.
are up for pet sitting Ash, right? Okay. Well, in
Mm.
the unlikely scenario that you're passing through France, then and you need a dog sitter, then we could do a good job,
Uh,
couldn't we? He wouldn't chase our chickens around though, right? I'm sure he'd be fine.
mm,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. He'd probably get after a chicken. I imagine he'd get after a chicken. But you might get to meet him in BTC Prague if you guys come here this summer. So
Yeah, I just had a chat with Martin yesterday, actually, and he touched on what we're going to talk about today, Vexel and the
yep.
Vexlax. Is that what they were called?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
right.
Vexlox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And we want to
Vexlox.
get into all of that good history. He gave me a little primer, but I told him that I was going to be talking to you today. He's like, "All right, I'm going to step off. I'll let Grafton go into
Cool.
the Vexlac history for you." But
Yeah, I like Martin a lot.
before we
Yeah.
get into any of this, we've got to give the floor to Lauren because she's got the first question for you.
In your opinion, what is the most important thing about Bitcoin?
For me, honestly, it's been community. It's been something that's giving me many, many friends. It's given me the freedom to kind of travel anywhere and meet people from all over the world and share those experiences with them. Bitcoin is that peer-to-peer electronic cash, that currency, but it comes with that community. I wouldn't be where I am without the people that I've met through Bitcoin, and that's been the kind of the best thing for me. Yeah. But for me, the most important thing absolutely is getting together, talking to people about what we can do to make the world better. And Bitcoin is that. That's what it was a response to, for sure. Yeah.
Very cool answer.
So hope that answers your question. Yeah.
And did you have a
I
follow-up?
studied well, yeah.
No, go on, go on. You studied.
Well, I mean, I studied history, and so I used to read books about people getting together in pubs and bars and talking about how do we change the world, and those things lead to revolutions and all kinds of history-making moments. And there's a part of me that goes, man, it's crazy that I'm getting together in pubs with my friends, having dinner, eating steaks in restaurants, and talking about what we can do to make it work and make the world better and leave it better than we found it. So yeah, that's for me what Bitcoin has been the best thing about it.
And this is something I try and shill on every single show is get in front of a Bitcoiner because there's still so many people that have been in the space long enough now to know where there's a local meetup yes, I'm going to shill Orange Pill app because it's the only app in town. There's 10,000 pure Bitcoiners on there where you can download it and find your nearest one or find your nearest meetup or find those conferences that are coming up. It was built for that specific purpose. And yeah, I'm going to come back to what you said about history and pubs and stuff. There's an interesting conversation we had there, I think. But I want to check that Lauren didn't have a follow-up question or anything else you wanted to ask. P2P, do you remember? What does that mean? Do you know what it means?
I remember I asked someone on the podcast about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I forgot about it. So what does peer-to-peer mean?
Yeah. So peer-to-peer is, person to person, basically. So when we look at something I remember growing up on the internet and it was early days of Napster and all of these things. And this was peer-to-peer file sharing, where you have a song or something and you have one guy who has it and you share it with another guy. So it's basically, instead of going into using a middleman, you're going directly to person, so peer-to-peer. Just like when you're in school, you're among peers. Those are the people who are your equals. And if you start putting people on different levels, then it's not truly peer-to-peer. It's, something higher to the plebs or whatever. But for me, peer-to-peer is well, if you have something and I have something and we want to do a trade, then we should be able to do that without having to consult a third party or anyone else. So directly to each other. Yeah.
Could also be called pleb to pleb.
Yes.
In fact,
it's very like, yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's the same thing. You could call it person to person, dog to dog, you know, is like my dog here when he might share a bone with another dog. In the office, actually, we have some things, but it's, you know, when you meet somebody and you have something, you know, if we look back in history is how we did trade. If a farmer has something and he wants to exchange it for something else, you would do that peer to peer instead of going to the marketplace and the market taking a percentage of whatever your sales are. And because they're marketing it for you, instead, you're just going directly to the person who wants to share with you, who wants to trade with you. So yeah, peer to peer, the way it should be. You know, if you're a doctor and you want to exchange, you know, something with your local movie cinema, you know, guy who runs the cinema, you can say, oh, I'll give you a pair of glasses if you give me movie tickets for the year. And that's like peer to peer. Instead of having to do something else, you can go directly to each other and you build communities this way, because then you know what people can help each other with. And that's the way I look at things and say, you know, it's like I scratch my back, you scratch yours kind of thing. Is that if you have something that I need and I have something you need, let's talk and let's discuss it. And we go directly to each other. So that's what peer-to-peer means for me.
Getting the regulators out of the way.
To you? Yeah.
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 Okay, cool. Thank
Without
Yeah,
a
thank
trusted
you.
third party. You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go now. Have fun. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. See you this summer. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, mate. Yeah, let's so you studied history. Is that what you were doing at college, university? Was that kind of like your background?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Mississippi, and I grew up in the South of America, you know, and I found my way out into Texas where you know, growing up, I always was this little like entrepreneur. I had like the first like food delivery service because my parents would work in the shopping mall, and my dad was an optometrist, and we'd work in the shopping mall. So I would go there every afternoon after school, and I wanted to play in the arcade, so I started a little business of delivering, because my parents got tired of giving me arcade money. So I figured out a way. I had a pager, like an old beeper, and people would I would print flyers up and tell them all the places, say, you only have 30 minutes for lunch, page me, I'll bring you lunch and you give me tips and I can go to the arcade. And so from a very early age, I had like this entrepreneurial kind of spirit, and you know, found my way onto the internet, and not knowing really what I wanted to study or what I wanted to learn, but the internet really gave me that, you know, it was the Wild West of you could create anything, you know, you could start a business overnight. And I got involved in like incentive-based advertising on the internet, like, congratulations, you've won a free iPod. You know, that was me. I'm sorry if anyone ever, you know, clicked on that and didn't do anything, but I was legitimate business shipping iPods to people for completing free trials of products because I was getting paid.
How old were you at that point?
Man, I was 17. Yeah,
Right.
I remember being in school, like my first month, it was like, you've won $600, you know, $600. Like, holy shit, you know. And then there was like $4,000, and then it was $15,000, and then one day I was sitting in
back up. For
class.
doing what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. What was the process?
Crazy.
So hang on.
So
is this
yeah.
mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s?
No, this is 2005.
Okay.
Right. I'm in high school in Mississippi, and I got on the internet and I saw this. I was like, I can probably figure this out. Let me try to do this. So I paid a guy I'm not a coder. I talk to people, not, you know. So I paid a guy to write me a script that would have this website that you have all of these free trial products, and you would refer 5 friends to that business, and they would sign up, complete a free offer, like a free trial, which would pay, you know, for American online, it would give you like $40 or something. and then they would refer 5 friends. And if they did it legitimately, the iPod at the time, or skateboard, or I had a bunch of different ones, they would pay for themselves. And so I would just directly drop ship it to whoever, and they would say, I want an iPod on the internet by referring 5 friends. So I was, in my childhood bedroom doing this. And yeah, one day I was sitting in class, and the principal came to my class and said, your father's on the phone and he needs to talk to you now. And I was like,
Right, yeah.
okay.
So this is before the days of any kind of mobile phone or anything like that. I mean, the smartphone hadn't even dropped, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, we had like Nokias with the changeable faceplates and like crazy antennas and ringtones and all that kind of stuff, but no smartphones. And I went to my dad is like, a very conservative, Christian man. I've never heard him say a bad word, And I picked up the phone and he said, what the have you been doing? Like, and he goes, why do you have like $65,000 in your bank account or something? And I was like, whoa, wait. He thought I was selling drugs or anything else. I was like, no, I can explain. Can you let me leave school? So I went to the bank, and there was a man from the IRS there, and wearing a suit, and I'm a teenager walking in, arrogant, full of, I'm, and I had an old Dell Inspiron, like big chunk brick laptop, and I pulled it up, plugged into the Ethernet, showed him what I was doing. The guy said, "Holy shit, pay your taxes." This was before Facebook. This was before any of that kind of stuff. And but because I was so young, and then finally I had the ability to share that I was making money, because I was a bit afraid to tell anyone at first. Then I had a lot of fun. I went to Las Vegas with my friends. I, bought a new car. I did all of the things that anyone would do at 17 with a lot of money that your parents didn't give you. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I did have some, some things that I did. I was able to pay for a lot of my university education and things, because America, it's not free. And I went to out of state. I went to Texas for university, Texas State in San Marcos, and studied.
Were you still carrying this on, or was that kind of like was the
No,
old man
man.
and the IRS like, just step off now, like?
No, like it got so big and so out of control because I was actually legitimate. Like I was shipping products, and so it got to the point where I was in my, bedroom getting 10,000 emails a day, with 1 million something users. Like it was too much for anyone to handle, and I couldn't explain it to anybody. That was the thing. It's like in that time, it was like trying to explain to someone that I need help to do this or to be able to manage it, didn't work. And then also, the advertisers eventually kind of caught on to this. Like, so it maybe would have been able to go on for 8 months to a year longer than when I kind of ended it, because the advertisers caught on and realized that these aren't legitimate free trials. Like the retention rate is very small. So they kind of shut down this ability to do it in this way. And yeah, so I struck while the iron is hot kind of thing.
Have you found anybody else that was doing that at the same time as you? There must have been like a little group.
Yeah.
Like I imagine you're like doing your own little meetups or conferences or something, like,
There were communities. I mean, there was like an old website, Gear Live, I think. I don't even know if it's still a website. But Gear Live was like they had like this big message boards and forums, just like, Bitcoin Talk back in the day or anything else. Like you had these online forums where people were sharing how to do these things. And I was a kid. I was, clever, but not really smart with what I was, doing. I was entrepreneur. I want to make as much money as possible. And that's kind of how I found my way, into Bitcoin eventually. But when I went to university, it absolutely destroyed that entrepreneurial side of me, because you start learning about history, and you start learning about, all of the differences, and you start, developing a different type of empathy and things for people, and education and university is like, there's, is it Gavin Anderson or someone who's the guy? Peter Thiel is who it is. Who says, I'll pay you not to go to university, right? And I mean, there's a part of me that believes that is like, yes, education is really important, but like if you're young and out there and you have ideas, like university will kind of put a governor on them and choke them a bit.
It's
And
designed that way, Grafton. It's
yeah,
by design.
yeah,
When you read John Taylor Gatto's book, The Underground History of the American Education System, he lays it all out. And he was a state school teacher for 30 years. It's
yeah,
done by design to completely stifle that entrepreneurial spirit. It's so dark when
absolutely.
you see it.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me really. And you know, I've always had like this 11th level, you know, like this extra gear that I can find and I can tap into, and that's like where my passion comes. I mean, we've met at conferences over the last couple of years, you know, a few times, but we have, you know, different spheres that we're doing and things. And you know, when I walk into a conference, I get to meet and talk with the people that I've admired and looked up to for so long. And there's something that happens to me because I'm filled with this passion of what I'm doing.
Dude,
And
you were
that
on
finally,
fire at Bitcoin Atlantis. On fire. Every time I saw you
thank you.
going by, you had that briefcase with you. You were just like bam, bam, bam. And that's where we interacted for like 2 to 5 minutes. And I'm like, you got to get on the pod. We'll sort this out because we were,
Yeah,
like you said, we were
yeah,
just kind of like revolving around each other. But I could see it.
yeah.
And I saw it in there's so many people at that conference. And I think I've been trying to figure out what it is. And I think it was natural light, man. 3 days conference in natural light is so
I was
different.
wearing a hoodie in the sunshine, like looking at the most beautiful view you could imagine, and like the people, the atmosphere, the vibe. You know, it's like BTC Prague is still my favorite Bitcoin conference I've ever been to because of the vibe and the content and everything there. But I mean, Bitcoin Atlantis was hard to say it wasn't awesome because the people that I interacted with and the scenery, the food, the island. Like if you haven't been to Madeira, go. Madeira is a wonderful place. We went hiking. I went canyoning, like jumping off of waterfalls in a wetsuit and stuff. Like I had so much fun. I got to stay for a few days after the conference, and I needed the much needed the rest, but I was still just like so filled with you know, that energy from the whole place. So it was great. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I got to meet a lot of people, and the like the lineup and the people who were there was pretty stacked, I would say, and it was very intimate. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome, mate. So history,
Yeah.
because you said
Yeah.
something at the beginning here, which
Yeah.
really kind of got me thinking back in like the beginning of 2020. You said you studied about history and about how people gathered together in in the UK. It would have been the pubs, and Prague, obviously the
Yeah.
pubs. Or
Yeah.
historically as well, coffee houses used to be. If you went further back in history, that would be in different parts of the world, depending on the culture of that place. To come together and have these conversations. Were there any? Yeah, do you want to like expand on that a little bit, like what you were
Yeah. I
learning?
mean, I mean, history is something, from the early days of like explorers getting together and saying, where are we going? And like organizing these kinds of things. But also, I focused mainly the part of history that was the most interesting to me was like Cold War. I found it fascinating. So I read books about Stalin and Khrushchev, and I had this weird kind of attraction to Czech Republic and what was, or Czechoslovakia, and what was happening. And there was something unique about Czechs is you look at like how revolutions happened, and it did happen with masses gathering in the streets and doing things in a peaceful way, the Velvet Revolution, to make these changes happen. But it started with people talking and making these decisions and acting on it. And as we can see, our movement, it moved from like little online forums to now, football stadiums in Madeira. So, like you can see this how it's feeling. But what I always found fascinating is, people ask me all the time, like, why did you move to Czech Republic? You're an American. Why would you go somewhere like that? And, I always joke is there's nothing like a post-communist country that understands what it means to have freedom.
Mhm.
And if you look at like what that feels like and what's that's like here is, you know, the further you get away from gaining your freedom, the more likely you are to start losing it again. And if you look at like the United States as, if I say, you know, what are the countries that surprise you most about financial freedom? The United States technically should be the most free place, but it's one of the worst, right? You can lump it into crazy categories of other countries that, you know, well, look at China, North Korea, Iran, you know, places where there's not really so much financial freedom and there's a lot of oversight and control. Yeah, it's pretty similar. And so I look at Czech Republic, and here, you know, we have a lot of people who are very concerned about preserving and protecting that freedom. And that's what I always kind of admired about this country. And so I moved here, and you know, I like I said, I studied history with the teaching degree. So I wanted to teach history. I wanted to work with American high school kids and teach. And, you know, that was what happened. Like I said, I was an entrepreneur, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to work as a high school teacher. Yes. And it's like university like kills your dreams. And then, so I said, all right, I'll do 1 year. I did study abroad. I actually lived in Canterbury in Kent. I went to Christchurch University there for a semester. And I came to Prague for like a 4-day weekend, and I met some Czech people, and we stayed in touch, and we're still friends. And like, that was Czech. I was like, okay, Czech people are some of the like the ride or die friends. I've never had friends that are like, I would move back to the States and those guys would call and check on me. You know, as someone I met over 4 days, they kept in touch, and like they, you know, you ask any Czech person what they're doing this weekend, they're probably going to say, oh, I have a birthday party to go to. It's like my uncle's friend's birthday party. You know, it's like they have this really, you know, you come here and you see like, oh, they don't look so friendly. They're not really smiley people. Where I go to Spain, everyone's smiling and this, and you come here, but you get to know a Czech person, and after 5 minutes, they have the best sense of humor. It's sometimes dark, black humor, but they really are like loyal, good people and good friends, and they're builders. And I started teaching English here as like a, you know, sabbatical, a gap year, as they say in the UK. And man, now I've been here 13, and I work on a project that is dedicated to making Bitcoin what it's supposed to be, which is peer-to-peer without third parties. And that's like, you know, our co-founders of Satoshi Labs, I worked in Trezor for, you know, worked my way up in Trezor. I said, I just want a foot in the door. Let me show you what I can do. And actually, I have a funny story that I tell Knut all the time, because I met Knut in Miami in 2022. And I read his book, and I wanted to get him to sign it. And so you know, this book signing table was right across from the Trezor booth that I had exhausted myself working at that week. And Knut signed my book. He's like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work at Trezor. And he's like, oh, Trezor, you know, they're a bunch of shitcoiners. And so he called me a shitcoiner. And that was like the first thing that, like the first interaction I ever had with him. And I was like, well, actually, I mean, I don't think you could really call it shitcoiners. I mean, like, if you look at what Trezor and how Trezor really contributed to making Bitcoin accessible and convenient for people, is like, you know, BIP39, that exists because of them. You know, the world's first hardware wallet, and this path. And then if you look at like our other companies and what Satoshi Labs has done, you know, you have Tropic Square. I don't know if you've heard of Tropic Square, but very cool. World's first open source secure element. Like, it's coming. Then we have Vexel. And Vexel is that app that, you know, is like, it's peer-to-peer, purely peer-to-peer. It's a mobile app, and it's not a wallet. It's not an exchange. It's not some big order book with random people posting offers. It's, you know, it's real. It's something that scales and it works. And I met like Leia that same weekend, who is my CEO, the same weekend in Miami. And I was like, so tell me about what this is. And I said, that's what I want to do. That right there is what I want to do. And so every time I think I've met Knut since then, I've given him something. I've given him like whatever I'm holding, whether it be like a t-shirt or something. And I said, please try to call me a shitcoiner now because like you can't, because I really, that's what, you know, in a way he did motivate me, because I wanted to show him that, hey, no, that's not what I'm in this for. I'm not in this for anything other than Bitcoin. That's kind of how I found my path to where I am now.
And it's come full circle because he's got his little emblem on like the latest released Trezor hardware wallet, right?
Yeah,
it might be a Bitcoin only one. I can't remember the exact story.
It's the Bitcoin only one, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah. I mean,
every Trezor is Bitcoin only, by the way. Yeah. Every Trezor is Bitcoin only because it ships without firmware. So you just choose to install Bitcoin only firmware. And you know, shitcoiners, they exist. They eventually realized that they should just have Bitcoin. So shitcoiners make Bitcoiners. Everyone gets attracted by Lambos and all of these talks. Like I said, back in the day, I was a kid. That's what I wanted. But now, you know, we've seen that huge paradigm shift from buy Bitcoin to, hey, don't buy it, study it. You know, you projected on building, study Bitcoin. Because when you start studying it, and when shitcoiners don't study anything really. They join, they get NFTs and pictures and all this kind of stuff. But then the more they start learning and the more they start dealing with it, they buy a hardware wallet. And if you buy something like Trezor, you know, Trezor, we're Bitcoiners, we're cypherpunks, we're these people. So you have to have these tools to get them and help them understand and educate them. You know, yes, Bitcoin only companies are awesome. Support your Bitcoin only companies. You know, Vexel, that's what we're doing. But every Trezor is a Bitcoin only device. You just choose the firmware you want to install. So, but I think now, you know, we're really, I always joke, I was like, yeah, I think in a few years, maybe Vexel will be bigger than Trezor because, you know, that's what we're trying to make something really convenient is if you look at how people answer that question today, like, okay, I studied Bitcoin, I'm ready to buy it. How do I buy it? That, depending on who you ask, if someone asks you, you might recommend, you know, 5 different ways. You know, if you ask, you know, Bob over here, he might say, here's my, you know, centralized exchange referral link. Sign up, man, because I'll get $10 worth of free Bitcoin and you'll get $10 worth of Bitcoin. Win-win, right? But when you do that, you are incentivizing people to give away all of their personal information for convenience. It sounds really familiar. It sounds like the path that we've all been down, whether that be, you know, in a post 9/11 world, it became really, really convenient to share our information with everyone and to give as much information as possible. And they vilified privacy. They vilified the fact that, you know, hey, you know, you have nothing to hide, or do you? Do you have something to hide? You must be up to something. And that's not what privacy is at all. We know that privacy is the right to be able to selectively reveal yourself. So when you are kind of, you know, vilified and saying, you know, give all your personal information to exchange, your, you know, your name, date of birth, shoe size, blood type, all of this, you know, you're not helping anyone because that's not what Bitcoin ever was intended to be. Bitcoin was intended to be peer-to-peer electronic cash without a trusted third party. And that's like, you know, I think I gave you my sticker that I printed up, and it's like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to change the white paper. I want to highlight what I think is the very first line of the white paper that's important and is often ignored, is why are, you know, we trust in third parties when we have each other. And that's exactly, you know, your daughter asked the question, what is peer-to-peer at the beginning? Is peer-to-peer is easy. We all know somebody, you know, I'm sure you have the guy who orange pilled you, right? We all have those people, and we're constantly doing that. And if anything scales, it's your social circle. Because the more people you talk to, you know, we're all 6 degrees from Satoshi Nakamoto. You know, it used to be Kevin Bacon, but really, you know, we're all Satoshi Nakamoto. Anyone could be, well, except there's one person who's definitely not Satoshi Nakamoto. But we don't need to mention his name, but there's one person who's not, but everyone else potentially is. And we're all connected in that way. So I spent my entire life creating my social circle, the people that I trust, the people that I interact with. You know, if you come to Prague and you need something, you know you can reach out to me because you and I know each other, for a little bit now, and I'm going to give you good recommendations. I'm not going to give you some bad recommendation. But a lot of people, if you're a tourist and you're traveling around and you want to visit a new city, where do you look for information? Google, right? Google Maps, or the worst, TripAdvisor. And I make this joke because it's like, if you come to Prague and you want to eat good food, let's go to TripAdvisor. All right, what do we look at? Number one restaurant in Prague? It's an Indian restaurant. I love Indian food, but if you come to Prague, don't eat Indian food. Go get a pork knuckle or a svíčková or even a smažák. Don't go get these Indian restaurants. So Vietnamese food is very good in Prague, by the way. I will say I recommend some Vietnamese food, but that's the world that we live in.
That's an interesting historical tie-in, right? Why are there so many Vietnamese people in Prague?
Yeah. Well, during communism in Czech Republic, Vietnam was also a communist country, and there was some exchange between the countries, and there still is very much a very close bond. If you go to Vietnam, you can actually find a lot of people speaking Czech.
That's nice.
I mean, it's really they're countries that they really like. We like each other. We like Vietnamese people here. They're great. A lot of my colleagues are as well. They're Czech people. That's what they are. They grew up here. They've spent their whole life here. And it's part of it. So, but there was a special relationship during communism between those countries, that there were some exchanges. But the Vietnamese food is very good.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so the thing I wanted to talk about with the history stuff, and you've really done a nice lead up to it here, is when lockdowns happened. And the alarm bell that went off in my mind was, oh shit, they don't want us in the pubs or the cafes or the bars discussing what is actually going on here. They truly want, it was like, all right, they just decentralized the gulags. We are prisoners in our own homes. When it's just funny that when you said, you'd studied that and how these, because there would have been, it would have taken 3 or 4 days of people discussing this, nah, this can't be right. This can't be true. This can't be real. But no, of course we couldn't, because we couldn't be face to face with each other. We were masked. We were locked away. It was such a freaking state psyop globally. Well, a WEF psyop, whatever you want to call it. But what was going through your mind? Was it the same in Prague, or was it less? Or
man, it feels like so long ago now. But yes. I mean, at first, you had the initial, I remember hearing about it and being at work and being like, I should wash my hands, feeling that there was something coming. And then when, Czech Republic was, I think, one of the first countries in Europe to kind of shut down, to have this sort of lockdown, which is surprising. But there's also some funny things that happened in Czech Republic as a result of it. But yeah, we did mask up. We had some crazy thoughts about needing to wear a mask all the time outside. People wearing masks in their own homes. This was a time where they did use a level of fear. And then, hey, again, they're willing to do things out of convenience. And so it's like, oh, you can go to the pub. You can travel. You can do these things, but you gotta first go get these weird tests that shove up your nose that, put samples, and we collect some data. And then now you got to get vaccinated. And it was like, well, I want to travel. I want to go to the pub. I want to eat, I want to see my friends. So maybe I should get vaccinated. And it became, easier to do what they said to do than to question it. Because, hey, here's that lockdown, stay home. But now you can go out, but only if you have this. I went to France during the whole lockdown in 2021. And it was crazy. Like every time you go in and out of anywhere, you have to scan, you know, this like QR code that it says you're allowed, you're allowed. So then we started living in a world that required permission to live in it. You know, if you didn't have permission, you were not allowed to participate in society. And that's terrifying. And I think a lot of people, you know, I hate to use the expression woke up during that, but I think a lot of people started to realize, and they, you know, that even found their path into this, you know. But I also do think that people were very productive during this time. People realized that they have to start doing something, that they have to start making changes in their life. I mean, honestly, I did feel like I used the time wisely. You know, I have a dog I was talking about. I started sewing. Like, I never sewed anything in my life. I bought a sewing machine and started a dog collar business. And then I was like, holy shit, I'm an entrepreneur again. What's going on?
Right.
You know, like I started a business during COVID because I was bored. And when you take people, I think that a lot of the world underestimated what people do when they're bored. And when you're bored, your mind starts running and starts getting turned on, and you start making, you know, you have to do something. And so I started a dog collar business and sold quite a lot, I would say. I sewed dog collars and leashes, started this Instagram store, and then next thing I know, I'm moving to Shopify and I'm shipping, you know, every month. Like I was sewing. And yeah, that's what got me into the door at Satoshi Labs, is because I was bored. And I said, okay, I don't know. There's no way. I have no experience in that area other than the knowledge that I've gained of the years of being interested in Bitcoin. There's no way. I had one interview with them, and they were like, "Dude, you're hired." And that's what I told them. I was like, "Just give me a foot in the door. I know I'm good at stuff, you know. But if I have the people, and if I have those kind of that push and that encouragement, is like, yeah, I can really do something." And I've been in this, you know, in Satoshi Labs for 2.5 years, and it feels like I've been here 10. Like I can't imagine the stuff and the where my life is now is like I'm actually doing more than I've done in the last 2.5 years than I have in the last 10. I'm building stuff. I really feel that we're making a difference. And yeah, but that kind of COVID and that is like we are all afraid. We all had that fear that's leading you, and that's what they've used every single time, you know, there's a reason why it works, because it works. People give up the convenience out of fear, whether that fear be fear of terrorism or fear of a virus that you can't see. So,
Yeah, man. All right, I got a book for you. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Red Symphony, and it's written by a guy called Landowski, who was you'll love it if you like Russian kind of history and how it all tied in with the Second World War and everything. It just blows the doors off. It's not a book; it's a transcript of a conversation that took place between a guy called Rakovsky, who was the Russian ambassador to France, and one of Stalin's top NKVD agents. And there was a doctor in the room called Landowski, who it was his job just to keep enough red wine on the guy's table to keep him talking, you know. And this actual book is just a chapter from a huge book. But this one is really, really important because they go into the capturing of the fiat monetary system, and who and they and everything, man. It's gonna light you on fire. So I'll send you the link after this. It's called Red Symphony. I'll send you the link. All right.
Well, I got one. I mean, I got one I can recommend to you too.
Go on then.
That we'll get into it. But have you ever read A Lodging of Wayfaring Men?
No.
By Paul Rosenberg.
No. All right, I'm writing that down. A larger thing, did you say?
A lodging, like a lodge. A Lodging of Wayfaring Men by Paul Rosenberg. Written before Bitcoin. But it's very, you know, very interesting because it basically describes how this cypherpunk movement kind of starts to come about. But you have these people who are participating in a peer-to-peer society that are being charged with treason by the United States government. And yeah, it's remarkable. And there's so much in that book that has also been inspirational for Vexel, what we're doing. And so yeah, I highly recommend it. I just reread it while we were in Madeira. And it's fantastic. Yeah. Check it out.
I'm actually looking it up right now on Audible to see if I can get it and start listening to it this afternoon. But yeah, so Vexel, what is it? Let's give the shill. We don't need an elevator pitch. We can get into it. You know, what is it and how does it work?
So Vexel is a mobile app that allows you to peer-to-peer Bitcoin with people that are in your social graph, right? So your peers. It's nonprofit. We do not ever monetize it. We will never monetize it. It is no KYC. So the only thing that you need to participate in Vexel is your phone number. And the reason why we use the phone number, which is private even to us, we have no idea because everything is done like locally on your device. But that phone number is what we've spent our whole life sharing with the people that we trust, right? So if you have in your phone right now, you talk to your Bitcoin friends with maybe Telegram, which I have no idea why a lot of people use Telegram and Bitcoin because it's not private by default, or Signal, or you use, Twitter or Nostr. But most people in the world are using WhatsApp. WhatsApp is like the most common thing. In Asia, they use like Kakao Talk and Korea and all these other different WeChat and all these other platforms. But in the world that most of us participate in, people are using phone numbers to communicate with each other, the people that they trust the most, right? So as I said, Vexel hashes those numbers and uses that numbers to build your social graph. So when I want to buy Bitcoin or when I want to sell Bitcoin, I use Vexel. I sign up using my contacts. It builds my social graph, my web of trust, we might say. And I post an offer and say, I want to buy Bitcoin. I'm looking to buy 5,000, Czech crowns or 400 pounds worth of Bitcoin. And I can post that offer. Now, people coming on the app can see that you've posted an offer, but I do not know who that offer belongs to. But that person is in my social graph. So when I click on that offer, I can see, I have 32 mutual friends with this person. I don't know who the person is because your identity is not revealed. That, again, is up to you to reveal your identity. We don't know it. No one knows it. So I can see, I have 32 friends in common. Daniel is there, Stick is there, Slush is there, Grafton is there. All these people are there. I can see the friends we have in contact and connection, but I don't know who the person is. So I can say, all right, this looks like I have 32 friends, so there's a good chance that this is going to go very well, right? We encourage people to meet face to face. Community is everything, right? Because, even if you don't know the person, if you have a lot of mutual friends, well, it's likely that you're going to make a new friend. You talk about the Orange Pill app and this, but Orange Pill is a little different because it's based basically on social circles, but this is designed to help you peer-to-peer. But then, humans have taken it and adapted it and made it done what they do best is they take a tool and they go, hey, I'm a farmer. Can I sell my eggs on here for Bitcoin? Yes, you can. Right? Or we've seen horses for sale. We've seen people renting cars. Farmers love it. Like that's people are selling honey for Bitcoin on Vexel. And it's cool because I can see that I didn't know that I know a farm. I didn't know that I knew any farmers in Czech Republic. But when I click on one, I go, dude, I have like 15 friends with this farmer. So yeah, I'm going to start buying my honey from the same guy and I'm going to start paying him in Bitcoin. And it's value for value, right? And because of that way that social graph scales, it's the ultimate way to buy Bitcoin, because right now it's like every marketplace in the beginning is empty. You know, if you sign up on the Craigslist back in the day, or even Facebook Marketplace, it was empty day one, right? But in Czech Republic, where we have, you know, thousands of users and thousands of offers, if I want to go out today and buy Bitcoin, I can do it in a matter of minutes using my social graph, my social circle, my web of trust, right? And it's done in a way that's fully anonymous and fully private, because we do not have any information about you. We do not know what the offers are. The chats that you have with each other are fully end-to-end encrypted, and your profile is separated. So those four aspects of your device and your profile, all of that is done locally on your device, and they're never communicating with each other, right? So the phone numbers is, we have no idea who the phone numbers is. It would be easier to generate a completely list of random phone numbers than to have any information about actually what phone numbers in our app. The phone numbers are strictly just for you to connect with your social circle, but that scales. Because today you might have 3 friends on there, but then as more people start adding and it starts to grow bigger, more people in your network becomes huge. So I went from last year having like 600 people, because you can see how many connections you have. I went from having 600 people to this year I have like 3,000. And everywhere I go, there's offers. You know, I was in Madeira, there were people selling Bitcoin in Madeira. Everywhere you can find it. But what you've also found is that people meet and they didn't know that they share a mutual friend, and they meet and they go, hey, by the way, Wednesday we have a community meetup. You should come along.
Mm-hmm.
So when you answer that question, it's going back to like, how do I buy Bitcoin? If you want to educate someone, you want to give them a tool, don't give them some app that connects to a centralized exchange that they give all their information to. Vexel is the first step, because not only can you buy Bitcoin there without KYC, peer-to-peer, the way it was intended, but you can also potentially say, I might need some help, right? I want to learn more about Bitcoin. I want to learn more about self-custody. And you know, because the way Vexel works is that it's done in a private way. And my friend, and I've told this story before, and I actually wrote an article about it, but my friend Gary and we've known each other for a decade, longer than a decade now. And we play video games together. He's a father, you know, he's busy. I come home from work and I have my dog. I just want to chill and play some video games. So we've talked a lot over the years. And he knows I work in Bitcoin now. He knows I've been a Bitcoiner for a long time. And every time I've told my friend, who is an American who lives in Czech Republic, to buy Bitcoin, he says, dude, I can't. Why? Because I'm an American, I don't have a permanent address in America, and I don't know centralized exchange will take my information. I don't have permission to use these centralized exchanges. Okay, so go to an ATM. Yeah, and pay 12% fee on top of it just to be able to buy a little Bitcoin. I'm losing, you know, is ultimately you're not losing, but at that moment it still feels like a loss in your head, and it still feels unfair for you to have to pay 12% on something. So he says, you know, like, I can't do it. So one day we were playing, I used to work at this company in Czech Republic where they accept Bitcoin. So in 2017, when Bitcoin hit, you know, it was like 20K. I was like, dude, I'm buying something with Bitcoin. And I bought a Nintendo Switch that I played for like 3 weeks and then never touched again. And so my friend asked me, hey man, can I buy that Nintendo Switch? And I said, sure, but I'll only sell it for Bitcoin. He goes, dude, I told you I can't. I don't know how. And I said, try this, man. Download Vexel and put in your offer. I want to buy my friend's Nintendo Switch, but he only takes Bitcoin. Help. 2 hours later, he sent me Bitcoin via Lightning, and I gave him the Nintendo Switch. The guy that he met is now his Bitcoin dealer, we might say. He DCAs into Bitcoin with the same guy now for well over a year. He's DCAing like every month with the same guy that he met from one Vexel interaction, right? So Vexel doesn't have to be every time you want to buy Bitcoin, you open Vexel. Vexel's about helping you find the guy that is your Bitcoin dealer. But if your Bitcoin dealer can't help you DCA this week, well, don't worry, because there's a lot of other people in your social circle that will also be willing to buy or sell Bitcoin to you. And so we think about scalability is that absolutely scales, because you're basically over time going to build a social web of trust that you know that you can buy Bitcoin from every single time. No matter where I go in the world, is we're all connected, and you do not have to be on Vexel to be included in that. Because if you know my mom and she's my mom and she knows you really well, well, we're connected through her because we both imported that contact. And so I can say, hey, mom, I don't really know this guy that I'm going to trade with. But he says he knows you, and you know, I trust my mom's kind of opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him to send you a message in just a few moments. He's going to send you a message. He doesn't have to tell me you don't have to tell me you're Daniel, but you can tell my mom, hey, I want to trade with this guy. Can you tell him I'm cool? My mom vouches for you. I meet you. I give you cash. You give me Bitcoin. And I go, you're cool, man. Let's hang out, or let's grab a beer, or we're here. I didn't know you have a podcast. Tell me more about it. Yes, we go, and you're able to kind of grow that community, and that's everything. Not your grandmother's ETF and investing blindly and centralized exchanges and doing all this. It's community is everything. Get together and answer that question. How do I buy Bitcoin? You Vexel it. And what does that mean? It means peer-to-peer without KYC. Don't buy Bitcoin, Vexel Bitcoin. And that's what we, I think you said you talked to Martin yesterday about that history.
Yeah.
And why we call it Vexel is that's why. Because you needed permission to participate in society. Vexlocks under communism were able to give everyone a sense of freedom. And that's what we are in danger of losing if we still allow third financial institutions to gobble up everything and then say, okay, you want to use it? Well, you need to participate. We'll grant you permission to participate in that system. No KYC, peer-to-peer, that is the way. And I think that Joe Hall made a really good joke in the panel with Saylor. It's like, well, what if, you're not going to see Saylor in a parking lot going like, can I get 10,000 Bitcoins?
Yeah. 10,000 Bitcoin, exactly. Not $10,000, but
yeah.
10,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, can I get 10,000 Bitcoin? And it's like, well, yeah, but maybe Saylor has a pretty strong web of trust. He has a pretty strong circle. So even for someone like him, it might be possible, right? And as we go, and no KYC doesn't mean, and that's why I told you about the logic of wayfaring men, is it's not my responsibility to force you to participate in someone else's system, right? You're a person and you live in society, so it's up to you. You have your own beliefs in your own way. So I'm not telling anyone to don't report your income, don't do that, but it's your right to be able to do whatever you want to do. It's not my job to police you. And that's why we want as little information about anyone. We don't have any information. We don't know anything about anyone. We know what country the phone numbers are in, and that's the only thing we know, is where our networks are kind of growing. Yeah.
All right. So,
but that's
what it is. I want to come back to the Vexlocks, and we'll do like exactly who they are and how they come to be and whatever else, because the plebs love history, love it. There's got to be a business model here somewhere. So how do Vexel, survive, make money? What's the solution?
Yeah. Well, Vexel is nonprofit. As I said, we have 0 plans to monetize. That is because we really believe that it's value for value. That there are ways you can participate in this system, and if someone is selling Bitcoin on the app and they want to say thank you and they want to kick back to us, after they sold so much money, thank you very much. It helps to keep our lights on and food in my dog's belly. We are 5 people and a dog, and the way that, we look at it is that we don't want to monetize it because we want to create something that gives people freedom, that allows and gives everyone the freedom to transact. I don't want you to have to pay to use this app, right? I don't want to know anything about you or your trades or who you're trading with. And if we start to figure out some sort of monetization path, it just doesn't work, right? And that's why there's no one else doing what we're doing is, this is Bitcoin is for everyone. This is for everyone. And that's why I told you in the beginning is like, I'm passionate about this because it's like, I don't need yachts. I don't need private jets. I don't need to take my yacht to Madeira. I am fine. I have a good, I'm happy. I love my life. I love my dog, but more importantly, I love what I'm doing. Because as I said, I studied history, and those people, and I had a really interesting conversation in Madeira one night after, it's some restaurant with a guy, and he says, the best thing about Satoshi Nakamoto is that if he is still alive, he gets to sit back and look and go, feels good, man. Like that, it has to feel good. And, that's, I was a teacher. Yes, I was an entrepreneur, back in the day, I did these things, and I will always find ways to make money in other things. But the one thing that motivates me more than anything is that passion, is finding something that you truly believe in and working on it and pushing for it and trying to make it work and improve people's lives. And that's why I think, is looking at our business model or anything, we don't have one. If you like Vexel and you want to contribute and you want to help us and you want to help this thing grow, and I had a guy from Australia, and he said, he's like, no, I want this. I'm greedy. I want Vexel for me because I want to be able to buy and sell Bitcoin this way. Yeah, that's why Vexel exists, because we wanted it. We wanted a way to be able to buy Bitcoin without KYC, peer-to-peer, the way it was intended, right? So, it's like asking the same question. If Satoshi is alive, well, why have his coins never moved? Why are these things? And it's like, well, the same with Vexel is that we don't want to monetize it because number one, that ruins something that's pure. Pure peer-to-peer it means pure peer-to-peer. You trade with your peer without us being involved, without collecting any sort of fee. There is no escrow. There is no trust in any sort of third party. We do not facilitate anyone's trades. We are essentially tender for peer-to-peer. We want you to have good connections. We want you to meet people, and we want you to trade on your own terms, right? And that's where you look at the app and the features that we've added, is to make that even a better experience for people. Is like there's a trade checklist. So before you meet someone, you can agree to the terms so that you have a little idea there, and you can say, nope, this is what we agreed on, we change. But you will find that most people don't disagree because of the connections that you have. It's a completely different reputation model than any other peer-to-peer service. If you look at any other peer-to-peer exchange, it's a risk. There's risk involved because even though it's no KYC, it's still KYC light because you're trusting a third party and then you're sending bank transfers. Okay. What does that mean? That means my name appears in a random person's bank account. That random person could be absolutely wanted for a crime in Singapore and be under investigation. So then the bank calls and say, hey, why are you doing business with this known criminal? How do you explain that? Or, if you're selling or selling Bitcoin frequently to pay rent or to pay everything else, your bank starts saying, hey, why do you have all of these incoming transactions, these things? We're going to freeze your bank account until we understand what's going on. Freezing people's bank accounts is a reality. It happens, right? So that's why I say, hey, face-to-face cash, still the best way. They vilify cash. You look at some countries like Denmark where, ooh, cash, ooh, gross, right? But that's not, cash is still king because it still provides a level of privacy. And that's what's the most important aspect of it. And that's why we say is like, I want you to be able to peer-to-peer Bitcoin as easy as you can go buy a carton of milk, right? Is if you need milk for your breakfast or cereal or whatever, you walk over there, usually right around the corner from where you are, and you come right back, right? That's how easy it has become to buy Bitcoin peer-to-peer in Czech Republic right now, because you have people who are using it, because historically they understand the need for something like this. And you know, it's that circular economy aspect of it as well, is if we want to live in a society where we do become on the Bitcoin standard, there are people living on it. You know, probably better than anyone, there are people living on the Bitcoin standard, and it's getting a lot easier. And that's what we're trying to do. And so monetization is, how do you monetize that? How do you monetize people participating in a true purely peer-to-peer circular economy? You don't. You create it, you give it, it's a gift to the world. So if you like what we're doing and you want to help us expand and you want to help us grow it and you want to help us share it with the world, then yes, you can say thank you. We appreciate every single donation. It goes directly into future development and further development of the app and to expand. I wouldn't be able to come to Madeira to speak and to meet you and to do these things if it wasn't for donations from people. That's just the simple truth. But no, there's zero monetization.
Have you spun up a merch store? Can people buy hats and hoodies and t-shirts, like Vexel branded stuff?
I mean, we don't have a merch store, but I mean, I have one over here. I have t-shirts. We have really cool brand, like really cool stuff. I know you've probably seen it. I do have hats and things, but usually we give these to the community. So, when we go to meetups, when I go places, I usually bring a few with me because, it costs money to spin up an app, spin up a merch store. And then it costs time to deal with the logistics of things. Also, I don't want to create throwaway merch. I don't want to create something that you might wear 2 or 3 times and then toss. So our merch is I wear it. I wear it constantly. I have a cool hat maybe back here, but I want to create something that's truly valuable and something that people want that value. And I know that you've been around, and when you see good merch, and you go, damn, this is nice and quality. And you'll even pay for that because you understand the value there. I remember being in Miami in 2022 at the Bitcoin conference and the massive amount of garbage that I accumulated on a daily basis that I would get back to my hotel and I'm like, dude, I flew here on an airplane. There's no way I'm taking all this junk back. No. You talked about the water bottle from Satoshi Labs. It's like, no, create something that people do want and that's valuable and that they hold on to, because everything else is junk.
Yeah,
I don't want it.
100%. Well, there's an opportunity there for an entrepreneur listening to this to do some kind of high-end Vexel merch and give you guys a cut. People have the time. And that people are looking to contribute in the space some way, for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, is if you're listening to this and you have a community, if you are a meetup organizer, it's like, what is happening at your meetups, right? Is people are coming there with the hope to peer-to-peer. They're learning more about Bitcoin. They're learning about what the important things about Bitcoin are, and that is, it's peer-to-peer. You don't need to trust anyone else, right? So you come to these meetups, and if you're a meetup organizer, is like, I want to talk to you. I want to hear how what aspect of your community, what could be cool about Vexel for them. How can we help? And that's what we do, is I was in Barcelona last week. I went to the Barcelona Bitcoin only. Kenobi invited me, and it was amazing. There was 55 people there. And everyone, they participate and they're asking questions, and they all, they say, yeah, we need this. And I always tell people, it's we're fully open source. Be skeptical. I don't want you to trust anyone who says anything. Don't trust, verify. You hear those words over and over. Our code is on GitHub. We're fully open source. You can find it. Be skeptical. Ask questions. Want to really understand how it works. And the more you start looking into Vexel, the more you go, oh, Oh yeah, this scales. This works because
Well,
there is nothing else
let's get
out
over
there.
that objection, because most people, like you're
Yeah.
doing in Australia, right? He's going to be like, yeah, I want
Yeah.
this, but no one around me has it. Here I am in
Yeah.
rural France. I have the app. I've posted an offer, so I
Hmm.
am participating, and I've checked the other offers that were available in Prague. Is showing me,
Hmm.
and
Yes, you
my
probably have.
two common contacts are Matches and yourself. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Is as I said before, every marketplace is empty when it starts.
right.
Vexel is grassroots. Communities are grassroots. Or imagine the first Bitcoin meetup you hosted. How many people were there, right?
Mhm.
3, 4, 5. Then the more you have 50. Barcelona Bitcoin, a huge community, amazing community, but it had to start somewhere. And Vexel works the same way. Is if you want Vexel, tell people about it. But the best thing that, as you just said, the best thing you can do is create an offer. Because the next person who joins, there's not an empty marketplace. So if you have Vexel and you want to buy Bitcoin without KYC, without anything, sign, get a Vexel, get Vexel, create an offer, say, I want to buy, I want to sell. And even if it takes a few weeks, somebody's going to jump on there and be like, oh, there's someone here. I'm looking to buy, and that's the way, is because it starts to really start to scale out. And I mean, in Czech Republic, we launched a Chain Camp, which is from the brothers Martin and Matthias. It's like, I want to say it's the largest non-English speaking Bitcoin only conference in the world.
It is. That's what they
You
said
came to Prague.
yesterday.
Yeah. You came to Prague, those guys, the vibe, right? No one else is doing it like they're doing. BTC Prague is an event. It's not to be missed. But Chain Camp was my real first experience with the Hukosh brothers and what they were doing. And I'm not a native Czech speaker. I had so much fun. But we launched Vexel, and going back to history, is Vexlox had a style. They were easily recognizable. They wore a
So
lot of
what
denim. It was the
this was
80s.
back in the dark kind of communist days, right? Like,
Yeah,
why
like 80s.
it was the need
Yeah,
because there
early
were
80s.
two different company currencies, right? Is that the whole?
Yeah, as I said, I'm American, so I never experienced them myself. But there were these vouchers, and these vouchers they called them boni. And these vouchers were necessary to be able to go into these stores that were sponsored by governments. And the store was called Tuzex. And Tuzex would allow you to buy a pair of blue jeans or a JVC stereo, stuff that other people couldn't buy. So if you weren't allowed to go in that store, but you had cash, the Vexlocks would meet you on the street, and you would give them cash, they would give you boni. You would take the boni in, and then you had permission to participate in that society. So it was a really gray area. It was a gray market because they were genuinely tolerated, but it was certainly illegal. But they were tolerated because they did provide that freedom. And as I said, look at why Czech language, and look at how powerful that has been for Czech Republic over the years. Is Czech Republic has been occupied but never conquered, right? Is because the Czechs are gathering. The Czechs assassinated Hitler's butcher of Prague. If you've ever heard about that, is they got together in a pub and they said, we're going to assassinate Heinrich, and they did it really close to here. The guy who was responsible for tons and tons of murder, he was murdered in Prague by Czech people, assassinated because he was limiting them. And so Czechs have always had this kind of ability to stay together and to create things, but never lose what it means to have that sort of Czech freedom. And it's inside of them. Even though, the Nazis came here and the Russians came here, and you've had occupiers, but you've never been truly conquered, because Czech culture is very strong. And I think that those people, and the way that they participated in that society back then, that's where it comes for today, is Vexlox, right? And they had this style. they were easily recognizable. They had mullets, right? They looked really, you know, you would look at them and go, it's pretty cool now, right? But back then, it was very cool. But I grew up in, with the achy breaky Billy Ray Cyrus Hart mullet, the country music mullet, not the 80s Vexlock mullet. But at Chain Camp, we decided when we launched Vexel, it was like, we're going to dress up. We're going to wear. So I was wearing a mullet, giant glasses, and like an Adidas tracksuit, but I'm an American, right? So every person that I'm encountering, I'm like speaking, this my Czech, but the second that I open my mouth and speak Czech, I'm identified as not being Czech. So they're like, what the hell is this dude dressed up as a Vexlock? What is going on? This is so bizarre. But people loved it, and immediately it connected with the Czech audience because they went, aha, peer-to-peer, no KYC, because it got it. But outside of Czech Republic, you don't really have that same knowledge of it. I know you know Chris from Cedar.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know Chris, the tallest man in Bitcoin, but I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. And he had the first time he heard Vexel, he was like, "Is that from like the German word?" My German is as bad as everyone else's who's a native English speaker. And he was like, "Is it from like the Vexel?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what it's from." So it actually comes from the German word to Vexel, which is to change money. And if you go to Germany today, you will still see the word like Vexel is the currency exchange. And they had a question about it. I think at the pub quiz in Madeira. I was like, what app is using the Vexel, like the German word? But this word it's German. It means the same. But in Czech Republic, it took on a different kind of feeling because Vexlocks were also the people who would trade and allow tourists who were coming in. They would trade money. They would exchange money with the tourists to allow tourists to participate in this communist society. So there is a lot of rich history there, and I recommend looking it up. There's a really interesting movie that I watched last year called Boni a Klid, which is a Czech film about Vexlocks. That's very interesting. But they use the same song over and over. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, relax, don't do it. So if that song triggers you, I wouldn't recommend the movie. Yeah. But there certainly is that history that comes, and that's why we were so successful in Czech Republic. But that's why I said, if you have a meetup, if you have something, learn that history, learn what it means and why it's important, and talk about it, because Vexel does work, it does scale, it does grow, and there's no simpler, better way to buy it. And now, I think if you look at how difficult it is to use a centralized exchange for a first timer, right? Now it's becoming easier to peer-to-peer than it ever has been, because how many hurdles and how many things do they put in front of you that stand between you buying Bitcoin and actually getting Bitcoin into your wallet? Mm-hmm. A lot. And every single one of those, yeah.
Yeah, we're at a point now as well that you were talking about earlier, like there are so many people living or trying to live on a Bitcoin standard, and circling out of the Bitcoin that you've hodled for so long is a painful experience, because you want to keep hodling, but you've moved away from the fiat rat trap. So you are forced to still, for us to participate in this society, I need fiat currency. So therefore, I need a way to exchange the Bitcoin. And going back to the centralized exchanges is far worse than it's far worse selling back to the centralized exchanges than it was buying in the first place, because then you're really going to start raising red flags. So, okay, sure. So where's all that money going to now? What bank account do you want that to go to? So I see this as a natural progression, and I think this is why P2P is just going to start exploding, because so many people around the world are forced into finding fiat, but they do not 100% do not want to go back through the same route that they might have come in, through the centralized exchanges.
No, and I think also people are starting to understand the importance of privacy and what it means to have some sort of degree of privacy. But the convenience side of it is exactly what you just touched on is now it's like, man, I have to pay for something in a fiat world. Do I really want to wait to send my money to an exchange and then send that money into my bank account, which sometimes takes 5 days, whatever, it's like they're still living in dinosaur world. This is like how this is crazy to me. If I want to get cash because I have to pay rent because my landlord is a former, is a Bosnian immigrant who understands, hey, I don't want a bank account, I want cash. And I want to put that cash under my mattress. There are still people who lived through wars who are understanding that banks are not your friend, that banks freeze your accounts, banks take your money, and they don't have to give it back to you because, oh, there was a disaster, there was a war, there was something. You look at, you say, oh, FDIC insurance, on, money potted into the bank account. It's like, what does that even mean? Is it, oh, it's because they could print more, but I look at what it is, and it's way more convenient for me, someone who does earn some Bitcoin, that if I need to pay rent, I'm going to vexel it. I'm going to get cash, and I'm going to give that cash to the landlord. I'm not going to, why does it ever need to touch my bank account? And I think that, as you said, is no one wants to go through that hurdle and those hoops of dealing with that, selling the Bitcoin on an exchange. Selling your Bitcoin on an exchange feels dirty. It feels worse because you're going, you're looking at it and it looks like Wall Street.
Yeah, well, who's going to hoover that up,
like,
right? The ETFs are going to hoover that up. I want to stand face to face with a dude and, okay, yeah, here's a couple €100 worth of Bitcoin to your Lightning wallet or on chain. What do you, okay, here's the difference.
Yeah.
And then you have that conversation, and then you are educating the next wave of Bitcoiners.
Educating the next person. And that's, that's why I talk about like the orange pilling, and what that is like in Madeira, is like every taxi that I would get in Madeira, the guy would be like, oh, you guys here for the Bitcoin conference? Yeah. The people who were in here before me, they told me about Bitcoin, and I have wallet of Satoshi, and then you have like 3 people in the car who are like, oh, and no one can agree on what is the best way, right? Is if some people use these wallet of Satoshi, if someone uses Blink, or if someone uses Phoenix, they all have people who are fighting against them, who are saying, oh, you shouldn't use that, or you shouldn't do that. And it's like, hey, guys, one thing we should all agree on is that you should be peer-to-peering your Bitcoin, like peer-to-peer, and no KYC your Bitcoin, and self-custody, right? So what's wrong with these white laws? People go, oh, it's not self-custody, right? And so we encourage everyone to get in self-custody, but we also understand that if you have 10 minutes to get to your destination in the back of a taxi, and you want to get out of that taxi and you want to give someone Bitcoin when you get out of it, their first Bitcoin ever, that, yeah, you only got so much time. You've got a 10-minute or even shorter elevator pitch to give something to someone that could potentially make an impact on their life for the rest of it, value for value. And, if you have some taxi drivers, you don't say a word, and you get in and you drive and nothing, right? But I've been in many a taxi with random Bitcoiners and Bitcoin friends, and that conversation comes up more than you sometimes want it to. Is, hey, do you know about Bitcoin? Can I pay you in Bitcoin? And we have to figure out a way to educate people quickly, to educate people the right way. And this is one of the reasons why I like Nostr. I mean, I got really purple Nostr pilled hard in Madeira because most of the people that I were communicating with, we were exchanging, Nostr contacts. And, Nostr, some of these applications, they do come with wallets, and you can Lightning someone, like these Prima wallets. There is some KYC involved in that, and that's a thing. But there's like, to be able to orange pill someone and Nostr pill them at the same time, send them their first sats, and then say, hey, follow these people and ask questions, right? Learn about Bitcoin, keep studying it, go down this rabbit hole. That's something that we have to do, because, if your taxi driver, if he hears about Bitcoin in the back of the taxi and then he goes home and he starts Googling it, well, he's going to wind up on sponsored ads that are going to lead him down the path and going, click here to you get your free first Bitcoin free, in exchange for what? Like, You know, that's the problem that I see, and that's the problem that I think, you know, Vexel does fix, is that you can tell the guy in the taxi that, yeah, you need a Lightning wallet, and if you want to buy or if you want to sell the Bitcoin that I just gave you, right? Peer-to-peer it. Peer-to-peer it. Who has a, you know, taxi drivers have a pretty damn good social graph and a pretty good web of trust, because I remember when I lived in Austin, Texas, I used the same taxi driver every single time because I trusted that guy. I could leave stuff in that taxi and he'd pick me up after the night out and he'd give me my stuff back. He would keep it safe for me. If I went to a concert, he was my coat check, you know? So that's the kind of things, and that's the kind of people, is if you're participating in that society and that living on that standard and you want to share with people, don't incentivize them to give away their personal information. How do you buy Bitcoin? Vexel it. That's why, like, our website is, people ask me all the time, are you Italian? Are you guys related to Italy? And I'm like, no. I have to explain that, but it's like vexel.it, because it's how do you get it? You vexel it.
Vexel it, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's what I say, it's like, you know, check it out. We also have the foundation, which is our nonprofit that supports the funding of the Vexel app. You know, as we build Vexel and as, you know, value for value starts coming in, we really are looking forward to being able to fund other privacy preserving projects, bringing in ways, you know, we're looking at the future and how, you know, we can look at things like Nostr, and you know, there's some potential on Nostr. Does it have a good trusted social graph currently? No, because you've spent your whole life building the one that you already have. It's impossible to reinvent a social network just for us, but Nostr is doing something. And you can feel that, you can feel the growth, and you can feel how something is definitely, there is something to be said about it. But it doesn't provide what you have right now, and that's your real world reputation. My online reputation it's possible to reinvent tomorrow, right? New profile picture, who dis, right? You see this all the time, but my real world reputation, I'm not going to screw you over. If I meet you on a Vexel trade, I want my trade to go well, because you know that a lot of the same people I do, and the last thing that anyone wants to hear is that Grafton scammed Daniel Prince. No one wants to hear that. You protect your real world reputation. Your online one, you don't care about. And that's why looking at what Vexel is and how it's changing that reputation model and what it's bringing to the table, is it brings something completely different. We don't have a 5-star rating system because it's not necessary. Why is it necessary do you give your friends 5-star ratings? No. You call your friend a dick if he's a dick. You call him, you know, you give recommendations to people that you trust. And you can do that in a way that's extremely privacy preserving. And that's what Vexel is privacy preserving, trust-based network that allows you to connect with people, do it the way it was intended. And, you know, I can talk all day about that, but the best thing that you can possibly do is to, like, try it, grow your community.
My takeaway from this is, whoever's listening, just download the app, create an offer. There's absolutely no downside, and you're just going to help create like a bigger sphere. And for those that, I'll connect you with a couple of people I know in the UK that run UK events.
Great.
And in Andorra as well. Make sure Tib is up to speed. And
I know him.
Yeah, you do? All right, cool.
Yeah. We've talked several times.
Excellent. Yeah. And it'd be great for people just to give a little slideshow intro, you know. I love the events. It's great. It's great just to go and meet and have a few beers, but I think they've got to evolve into something more where there is some kind of structure to it. You know, I've been to a bunch of them, and the best ones are, right, guys, just 20 minutes. Just, you know, I'm going to talk you through this new service and what it means. And bam, open up the conversation again, because you are in a bar after all, and you want to go and have fun and have conversation.
Well, that's why I said every meetup starts to scale. Is at first it's a couple friends getting together talking about Bitcoin, and then the next thing you know, they're like, I brought some other people, And these people want to learn stuff. And so, yeah, it's like, yeah, you can do it. But then as your meetup and as your community starts to grow, it starts to really become something. And then you do become the guys in the pub talking about changing the world.
Yeah.
And that impact is great. You know, I talk to Max Hildebrand about that all the time. Me and Max, you know, is sometimes in Prague, and Max is a very good friend with my dog. So we go hiking all the time. And I had that conversation with him. I was like, dude, it's so crazy. Back when we were talking about CoinJoin and all this stuff, I was like, it's crazy. I never imagined myself talking to someone like you, figuring out how we can educate people and help them learn and take back their privacy, reclaim it, as your shirt says. And that's something that we,
It's
as
a wasabi shirt.
Bitcoiners, yeah, as something that we have to do. We have to reclaim our privacy. And then we have to be very selective about what we reveal about ourselves. So yeah, if you're a meetup organizer, I am very easy to get in touch with. Like I am a private person, but I'm also a public face. You know, I have not many people named Grafton in the world that I've known. But I'm on Twitter. I'm Sats Disco pretty much everywhere. Like Sats Disco. Disco's my old gamer tag from back in the day, so it's kind of stuck with me. But ask me questions. You know, send me your thoughts, send me your critiques, your criticisms. I just want to talk to you. I don't want to argue. I want to listen, and I want to understand what your approach is and how Vexel, because as I said, we're wanting to create a tool for everyone that gives everyone the ability to participate in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is for everyone. And so if you have an idea, if you have a thought, if you have a question, reach out to me, and let's talk. If you have a meetup and you want some support, if you want us to come and show Vexel and share it with your community and give you guys some tips on how to really jumpstart it, get in touch. I'll be happy to. If you want, you know, if you want some merch, if you want to get, you know, something, if you want to support our app, if you want to help with that development, like check out vexel.foundation. It's our foundation's website. Check out vexel.it, get in touch. And tell your friends more than anything, but create offers, really get it on there, create offers, and start telling people. Answer the question, how do I buy Bitcoin? Vexel it, right? That's what we want. And, you know, it's gradually and then suddenly. And that is what we all know to be true.
Yes, we do.
Is how many people ask you about Bitcoin now versus a year ago or whatever. So, yeah, but it's really been a pleasure to talk to you. Finally, we got to kind of sit down and have like some long form conversation.
I was wondering, are you going to be in Warsaw for the European Halving Party? Are you making that trip?
I will be there.
You will be there. Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. We will see you there, and I want to do a Vexel trade with you in person, face to face. Somehow we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
What is it? Actually, I'm gonna. Yeah, they have the zloty, right? We're gonna need some zloty. Any Polish Bitcoiners listening, please get some offers into your Vexel, because Grafton and I are coming. We need some local shitcoins.
I will definitely need local shitcoin. I'm looking forward to the films and to the conference and to meeting everyone. Cool. And the place where it is, I talked to Tomek the day before yesterday, and it's like it's at the Palace.
Yeah,
like it's in the center of Warsaw. Yeah, I was like, I've seen that building my whole life in pictures, and now I get to like set up a peer-to-peer spot to like, you know, sell Bitcoin there. I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. So I'm really looking forward.
And the fact your Twitter handle is Sats Disco, they're going to have a silent disco, which is going to be so much fun. Have you ever been to one of those things?
Of course, man. Of course. I mean, the silent discos. I went to the one of the biggest music festivals in America, which was Bonnaroo back in the day. I grew up listening to jam band music. So I traveled around America from a very early age to go chase my favorite bands in concert. Awesome. It helped that I made that money on the internet.
Yeah, for sure.
But my dog has woken up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have been to some silent discos. Yeah. And my favorite band is still disco.
It's the perfect event for a Bitcoin, because everyone's just gonna have the earphones off talking, probably. Like, you know, that's what happens when Bitcoiners get together, as you well know. But right, okay. Final question for you. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Oh, God. Ooh, it's a tough one. I could think about that one for a long time. But if I wanted to truly orange pill someone, man, I could really think about that one. Probably, well, you have to be careful who you orange peel and what they do with that. So it's how to orange peel that peer-to-peer pill. Yeah. I wouldn't give it to a politician. I don't think that they have any business doing it, but I would probably give it to my oldest brother, honestly. My oldest brother is someone that we've had an interesting relationship our whole lives. He's always worked on tech stuff. He is a computer guy, and worked for like Cisco for years, all this kind of stuff. But I think Bitcoin is one area where he's always kind of stayed away, and I think that he could provide a lot of value, and I would probably want to give it to him.
Awesome, mate.
My
I
middle
love those
brother
answers.
my middle brother is definitely a Bitcoiner. We've spent a lot of time talking and discussing over the years. My oldest brother, if he is a Bitcoiner, I don't know about it. So I would like to give it to him, I would say.
Well, one, I hope he takes the orange pill, or two, I hope his OPSEC is so good that not even his youngest brother would know that he's been stacking for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Grafton, been an awesome rip. I'll point all of those links in the show notes and people can come and find you. Look forward to seeing you again in person in Warsaw.
Yep.
If anybody wants to come to that, use the code BITTEN. You'll get 15% off. And same for Prague, BITTEN, 10% off for that one.
Also, I do have one last little thing to show. We have the Cypherpunk meetup in Prague that's before BTC Prague. So if you are here and you want to learn more about what's going on, look up the Cypherpunk meetup. Like it's part of BTC Prague. It's one that's not to be missed. It was a lot of fun last year. It was pretty legendary. So
that's the day before the main event. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the day before the main event, Thursday.
Excellent.
But I could be wrong, so I need to be very careful. Yeah.
Well, if it's all on the website, people are, the plebs are the plebs.
Come to BTC Prague. Yeah, come to BTC Prague. It's great. If there's one conference not to be missed this year, that's the one. It was amazing last year, and I think this year's only going to be better.
And as I said to Martin yesterday, the best beer of any conference. So, there's
undeniable. Yeah.
There's no contest. So
there's another reason why I live in Czech Republic.
Yeah.
So it gets easier. Yeah. Thank you so much, Daniel. We'll see you soon.
See you, brother. Bye-bye.